I'm going to tell you the story of Old Sarum. Old Sarum is the castle just outside Salisbury, and it was there way before Salisbury. In fact, it's where Salisbury came from. That doesn't make much sense, but it will make sense when you hear the story. I'm going to go through time, I'm going to go way back in time, and we're going to move forward in time step by step until we get to around about today. So every now and then I will pause like this. That means you can pause as well. You can press pause on the computer, and that means you can have a think and a chat about what I've just said and then maybe move on again. You don't have to pause. That's just for me to do. So, Old Sarum. There it is. This is our picture, Old Sarum. Do you recognise it? Have you ever been there for a walk? Do you have a dog? Maybe you've walked a dog around it. So you've got a big grassy place and the car park, and there's the toilets next to the car park. Actually, there used to be a lot more there. Let's have a look. Let's move on. So we're going to fly over in an aeroplane today because we're very lucky. We've got an aeroplane, imagination aeroplane. We'll fly over the top of it and look down. That's what we see today. There's lots of lumps and bumps in the ground, and you can see there's an outline, and then we've got some words on there to help you as well. We've got cathedral around about there. Can you see the cross-shaped cathedral? And we've got a palace. There was a palace in Salisbury. How amazing is that? Then Iron Age defences. Defences means to keep people out, to protect people. It's this funny, great big hole in the ground around here. And then it says Castle Keep. That's the castle there. So when you come, can you see my arrow there? When you drive your car, you drive up there and you park there, and there's toilets and you walk around there. That's everything that's going on, and we're flying over and having a look. So let's see, let's go back in time. What's our next picture? I'm going to pause. And I've unpaused. Next picture. It says Iron Age Hill Fort, 500 BC to AD 50. So way back in time. We've gone way back in time. More than 2,000 years. And we've gone to the Iron Age, because the first people to really make a mark on the hill, to do some digging and do some building up there, were the Iron Age people. They saw a big hill that overlooked a river, and they thought that'd be a great place to live. So they built their houses. Can you see the houses there? The round houses with a thatched roof, pointy roof like that. And they wanted to keep the bad people out, and they wanted to keep all the good things in. So they dug a great big ditch around the castle on top of the hill. Really big ditch, really deep. So you have to go, if you want to get in it without going through the gate, you have to go down the ditch and then try and climb up the ditch. And of course, while you're trying to climb up the ditch, can you see my arrow again? There's a fence at the top with these tiny little people there, and they're throwing things down at you. So if you've managed to climb up there, that's pretty amazing. But then you've got this great big wooden fence, and obviously, if they don't want you to come in, they close the gate. So a great place to protect all of your valuable things, and all your friends and family can be in there. Close the gate, and all the bad people are stuck outside. I'll pause again. Moving on. So who were the next people on our timeline in Britain? Well, we've had the Iron Age, the Celtic people. Now the next people were, it says at the top, the Romans. Yep, the Romans, they came from, where did they come from? Work that one out. In the year, there's the numbers up there, AD 43, and they were famous for lots of things, the Romans. It's a very interesting topic, the Romans. But one of the things they did was they built straight roads, and can you see my picture here, my big picture here? They built these roads. This is our map of the south of England, and that's the sea there, and these lines here are the roads, and this red road here goes straight through Old Sarum, the castle. But we've got a Roman word here. I'll try and say it. Sorviodunum. That is what the Romans called it. They didn't call it Sarum, Old Sarum. They called it Sorviodunum. But have you noticed the letter S? So they begin with an S as well. So it's always been called something. It was called Sorviodunum. We have a very rich Roman lady here. She's got a peasant. She's got lots of jewellery. She's very posh. Because being on a road, it would be a great place to buy and sell things. So maybe she's very good at buying and selling things. I don't know. I'm going to pause. Next people on our timeline were the Anglo-Saxons, there's the words. And again, there's an S word, but they changed their name for it as well. They still didn't call it Old Sarum, they called it, I'll have a go at this, but I'm not exactly sure. I think they called it Cereburg. Does that sound a little bit funny? Cereburg, because where were the Saxons from? They weren't from England, they came from the north of Europe, places like Germany. What's Germany now? In the year, there's our numbers, 552 AD. and they built their houses. There's lots of thatch there, and they're still pointy, but they're not round houses anymore. And what did they do at Old Sarum? They made, what's he doing there? Can you guess? A hammer, and he's banging those things together. He's got these funny little things in here. Well, they actually made money. In this bowl here, there are some little round, flat pieces of metal, and he would put a little flat piece of metal on the top there, and on the top of this is a piece of metal as well, it's a picture, and it's the picture that you would see on a coin. And so by putting that one on top of that one and then whacking it with the hammer, he then takes out his little flat piece of coin, and it's not flat and plain anymore, it's got a picture on it because it's now a coin. And the process of making coins is called, it's got a funny word, it's called excuse me, minting. He's making money. Why did they make money on Old Sarum? Well, I'll pause. Because of the Vikings. Yes, the Vikings did come to Salisbury, but they didn't really leave much behind. In fact, all they were interested in doing is taking things away. They arrived around about, here we go, 800 to 1000 AD. It says Viking raids. They came to take things. There's our Viking. Now there's a brilliant true story of a man called Sven Forkbeard. We think he had a beard which stuck out like that, like a fork. And he arrived at Salisbury, but not actually Salisbury, at Wilton. And Wilton, as you probably know, is just outside Salisbury. Why did he go to Wilton? Because before the Saxons decided to start making their coins on top of the hill at Old Sarum, they were making all of their coins in Wilton. And they're making these coins. These are actual pictures of, that's the front and that's the back, of real coins that were made at Wilton. So he came along, he completely burnt down the whole of Wilton, nothing left, took all the money and then ran off home again. So there you go, he left a very rich man. Next people came from France after the Saxons and after the Vikings had finished raiding, and it was led by his name William the Conqueror. So he came from France in an area called Normandy, which is at the top of France, and so all of his people were called Normans, the Normans from Normandy. And there's the years 1069 to 70. He arrived and there's a big battle and he fought Harold. Can you remember what year? It's a very, very, very famous year in history. What year did William and Harold have a battle? It was 1066, you got it. And in 1069, William the Conqueror was very, very good at winning battles, but also building things. He was good at building castles and good at building cathedrals and churches. And so on top of Old Sarum, where the Iron Age people built some things, and the Saxon people and the Roman people, Saxon people built some things, well, William the Conqueror came along and he built a lot. He dug great big ditches, he built huge stone walls, and then this big castle in the middle there. And what's this here? It's a cross shape. It's a cathedral, and as you can see, there's lots of people living here because they're all safe inside the walls here. They're all protected. When the doors shut, they're all safe from bad people outside. A good place to live. Now, something very famous happened at the castle. It says, William used the site for the swearing of the oath of allegiance in 1086. What does that mean? Well, I told you he came along and he had a battle with Harold, and so Harold lost the battle, and all of Harold's people had to say, oh, we've lost, so that makes you the king now, you're the ruler of the place. Well, William was very clever, and he decided to make them all sign a piece of paper, there it is, saying, you won the battle, I lost the battle, you're in charge now, I'll do what you say. And he got them to come to the castle at what is now Old Sarum and sign the great big official piece of paper at the castle in the year 1086. There is this person here saying, right, I won't fight you anymore. And so they say, great, the battle is finished. So what happened next? Well, this is what the castle looked like. This is a plan, so it's like a drawing that the architect, somebody who's building the castle would have. And we've got the wall that goes, can you see my arrow? The wall that goes around. And then we've got the gate here. So that's the gate where it's got great big stone walls, and they drop the door there, and when the door's shut, that's it, you cannot come in. And then there's this is called the Great Tower, so it's a great big tall tower. That's where all the parties and things, as well as the fighting from out of the windows, that's where all the big parties, all the big feasts happened. And then there's a little place here, which I think is quite sweet. This is called, this little building here, the bakehouse. And they put the baking, all the cooking, over here away from there, because in those days, the bakehouse where they made the bread, can you guess what might happen? What kind of accident might happen in the bakehouse? As well as making bread, what accident might happen in the place where they have ovens and they have fires to bake the bread? That's it. They had a lot of accidental fires, and sometimes the bakehouse would burn down. So they'd put the bakehouse over here, away from the tower. So if there was a fire, an accident, it would just burn this, and it would not burn the whole tower. Very clever people, these Normans. Here's a very rich Norman lady. Look, she's got a book. She's learned how to read. So in those days, these days everybody learns to read. In those days, just a few people learn how to read. And then this person here, just above my head, can you see he's got flies around him? Well, his job is to clean out the. Yeah, he gets to clean out the toilet because they had toilets inside their castle, and he got to clean out the toilets. Yuck. So, at the castle, in the year 1130, the bishop was given charge of the castle. He was in charge of the castle. Here's the bishop with his mitre and his lovely hat. And he built a cathedral. And then guess what happened? 5 days after he opened it to the public, it burnt down. Can you imagine? They built this huge, great big church and it just burnt down. And so he said, right, well, I'm not going to be beaten. And he built another one. So at the Old Sarum Castle, where there's no castles, there's no castle and there's no cathedral. All that time ago, there were actually 2 cathedrals. One, and it burnt down, and then another one which they built later on. He's not smiling very much. He doesn't look very happy. Maybe this is just after he's been told his cathedral was burnt down. So there was a problem at the castle. You had the army and the church next to each other, and it says the church and the army argue. The church decides to move to a new cathedral. So what they did, there's a picture here and there's a little story here. They decided, this is the story, and we're not sure whether this is true or not. They got an archer, the best archer. What's an archer? The person who fires arrows. But the best archer they could find is an archer, and they said, right, you fire an arrow, you stand in the castle and fire an arrow, and we'll see how far the arrow goes, and where the arrow lands in the ground, that's where we'll build a new cathedral. And the story goes that the archer pulled back, fired the arrow as far as he could, and it flew through the air, but then it landed, but it didn't land in the ground, it hit a deer. There was a deer grazing in the ground, and then suddenly it gets hit by an arrow. And what happened? Well, apart from saying ouch, or the deer word for ouch, I don't know what that is, the deer runs off with a great big arrow sticking out of it, and runs and runs and runs and runs for about 2 miles until it got to the river, and then sadly it lay down and it died. And so the bishop and the archer and everybody else were running after this deer, but where's the arrow going? Where's the arrow going? And they found the deer, and they said, right, well, this is where we're going to build a cathedral. And that's the story of why Salisbury Cathedral, the cathedral that you see today, so that's cathedral number 3, that's why that cathedral is where it is today, because that's where the deer with the arrow stuck in it lay down and died. It's a story. Is it true? What do you think? I'm not sure. So they started building a cathedral, and I'm telling you this story in the year, what year is it this year? It's 20, isn't it? 2020. So exactly 800 years ago, they laid the first stone, the first big block in the ground. And here's our stone mason. And there's a picture of stone mason. There's our stone mason, and they're going chip, 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 and they're making stone. It was a big job, but they decided, nope, we're going to build a new cathedral here. And it says the stone came from Chilmark, 13 miles from Salisbury. So this is a long, long time ago. It's 800 years ago, and they had to carry all of the stone and everything. Actually, everything they needed to be carried on these carts. Can you see the 2 cows there, or oxen? These cows, and they're pulling heavy logs, but they're also pulling lots and lots and lots of stone. They had to carry the stone 60,000 times in the cart, and it took how long to build a cathedral? Can you see the numbers there? It took 38 years to build a cathedral. Wow. But so I'm now talking about Salisbury and the cathedral we see today. What's happened up at the castle on top of the hill? Well, not a lot. The army got, well, we don't really need to be here anymore, and they left. And the cathedral was falling down, and nobody's looking after it or going to church anymore. So in the year, there's our year 1514, Henry the 5, 6, 7, 8, Henry the 8th. There you go, that's how you write 8 in Roman numbers. Henry the 8th, he wrote a thing and he said, right, everybody, you can take the stone from the castle, that's fine, you can use the castle. So people did. What did they do with the stone? They built their houses, they built the pub, they built the walls, all sorts of things, because it was a nice stone in nice square blocks, and they could take it away and they could build things. So of course the castle and the cathedral just fell down, it fell apart because people were taking all the stone away from it to use elsewhere. So we've got a falling down castle that's being taken away by the local people, and it's not really being used for anything at all. It's just a bit of a wreck, really. Here's a picture. This is an old picture, very old picture. It's got a date on it. Can you see there's a date there? It says 1723. So we're moving through time, but this is still a long time ago. There's some people out riding their horses. Can you see in the background? There's Salisbury Cathedral, and there's the city being built around the cathedral. But up on our hill, where we started our story, there's the lumps and bumps, but there's no castle and there's no cathedral, nothing there, it's all gone. Until, so we're moving forward again. There's this gentleman here, do you like his moustache? I think it's a brilliant moustache. His name's Lieutenant Colonel Hawley, and he was an archaeologist. What is an archaeologist? Yeah, an archaeologist is somebody who digs, they normally dig in the ground and look for things from the past. Sometimes they go underwater, they go in rivers and the sea to look for things, but they usually dig in the ground. And so here he is, and I think that's a photograph of him as well. And he went on top of the castle where there was just a wreck and there's some lumps and bumps, and he decided to clear away all the mud that had been dumped on top of what was left up there, clear the mud away, which is a big job. You can see there's lots of digging going on here, there's a spade, lots of digging, and have a look at the remains, what was left of the castle and the cathedral. And he cleaned up all the stonework that was left there, all the little bumps in the ground, and that means that today, when you go and take your dog for a walk up there, all those lumps and bumps that you can see that tourists go and visit, that's because of him. In the year 1957, he cleared away the mud and he cleaned up everything that was left over there, and now it's a protected place. You can't take stone away anymore, and visitors go and visit where there used to be a castle and a cathedral. And of course lots and lots of people go and see the cathedral today in the middle of Salisbury. So that's the end of our story of the castle called Old Sarum.